Okay, we're back again. Let's try one more time. Okay, Colonel Brian, we'll
Okay,
try again. Tell us a
thank
little
you.
bit about who you are, what your roles and responsibility is, and then
Well,
just
who I am, I'm an IT specialist.
yeah.
So thanks for your patience on this one. That just couldn't figure that one out, but it was my fault, I guess, in what I was doing. So, Lieutenant Colonel Brian Armstrong, Secretary for Personnel, really happy to be with you to share some exciting things that are happening. And I've been asked to talk about um, pathways to officership, which is really exciting in the things that are happening today. So let me just right off the bat, I got to tell you, these are exciting days as we work together in an environment that's calling us innovative and creative. And we see this, and I'm trying to be that person that can be innovative. And what did you call me, Jennifer?
I don't remember. Oh, boomer a minute
Yeah.
ago.
So I don't know what that is. I'm assuming that.
Okay.
uh, so innovative and creative, just as it was in the early days for the Salvation Army, when they also had to be creative and innovative to reach people with the gospel. So that's where we're also at with respect to training needs of the Salvation Army for today. It's a new day. It's a new day. God is doing something new, and with listening ears and discerning hearts, we're doing our best to pay close attention to the new, so that we're able to proclaim the old story in a new way. The good news hasn't changed.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's good.
Transformation is happening in people's lives, and transformation is happening in communities. Um, we all know that the biggest challenges taking place for us are the issues we're confronted with today. Issues that first century Christians wouldn't even have dreamed of. Um,
Mm.
so we've got to be men and women of God who can step into those conversations of today
Mm.
and represent the scriptures appropriately and with gracious conviction.
Yeah,
That's an important piece, that we be gracious in
yeah.
our conviction. Um, but I'm just excited about what's going forward, and I'm digressing a little bit because I'm I'm asked to briefly talk about pathways to officership, but we need to be excited about this opportunity and challenge that's before us.
Mm.
I'm going to briefly talk about pathways to officership, and Major Jennifer and Major Andrew will be able to pick up some questions or answers that of things I missed that or I don't have time to address myself. But the first pathway to officership is certainly the residential training, a 22-month experience to complete the certificate of officership, which is the launch into ministry.
Mm.
And we got to remember that's just the start, the launch into ministry, and that's followed up by the next 5 years of ongoing development, training. But during this time in residence, it's a beautiful time of living in community, of having staff available, regular classes, and worship together. So just an ideal situation for those who are able to come and spend the time at the training college. The second pathway is what's called field-based tailored training. And this is really an option for those who have a degree in biblical and theological studies, an undergraduate degree or a graduate degree. Um, these people who fall into this category will have opportunity to be placed in the field, still under supervision from the training college, but also will have input from the division. It's really about having field experience because they have the academic training that's would be required from the training college. However, there will be some courses that they certainly will need to take. And so there's a connection still with the training college, but your main focus is out in the field. The third option is auxiliary captains. Sometimes it's just not possible to go to CFOT on a full-time basis. And there could be a number of reasons. It's often it's been in the past someone who's further along in their years. What are they called?
Boomers.
Boomers.
No disrespect, though.
So they would like to they'd like to have an opportunity to serve the Salvation Army. So this is actually a 7-year training program, and it has an academic curriculum attached to it. So you're still again connected with the training college, and officers at the training college would be guiding you along this way. So there's regular connection at CFOT, and again, it's a 7-year program, and at the end of those 7 years, you will be, if you've met the criteria, would be commissioned as a captain. These soldiers in good standing is certainly a requirement, and Jennifer, I think you're going to talk about the requirements and all of these requirements, regardless of what you the path you take. There's requirements that certainly are expected, that a process that we'll have to go through. I want to tell you another way that could lead to officership. Emphasis on could lead. It's not necessary that you do become an officer, but it's an opportunity, and it's called the Auxiliary Lieutenants Program. This is brand new for us. It's a covenantal agreement of up to 3 years, renewable 3 times after that, whereby you would have the opportunity to serve full-time in the Salvation Army. It's a pathway that could lead to officership, but that's an option. If someone wanted to serve for 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, and then conclude, we'd say thank you for those years of service. We appreciate those. But you could do 3 years and then opt to do another 3 years, or up to 9 years. Again, not necessary that you move into full-time officership, but that option's there. You might get an opportunity to see what it's really like. Now, let me give you an example of people who would opt for this. So, if family circumstances just might prevent you from attending CFOT, but you can engage in ministry where you are, that might be a reason. It's actually a great opportunity to get some experience of what it will be like to serve as a Salvation Army officer. Now, you have to remember that in this, your years of service would not count towards officership. So you would be starting from the beginning if you went to training college. So just that's something to be aware of, if that's something that's important for you. In that, you also, as an auxiliary lieutenant, you would have support from the division, from the territory. We have a territorial training and development officer who is Deanna Zelinsky, Major Deanna Zelinsky, who walks alongside and just gives everything that's needed for the growth in that. There are some ecclesiastical restrictions that come with this. Because you are not ordained or commissioned, there are some things that are reserved for those who are ordained and commissioned officers, such as performing weddings. So there are some restrictions. But let me give you a good example of a situation that this has worked so well for. We have a Persian couple who came to the Officers Information Weekend a couple years ago and decided that this is what they want. They wanted to be full-time officers. Well, at their core, they went back. They started doing ministry as lay people, and it's grown and grown and grown. And so they now have, not only do they have a child in his last year of high school, which made it difficulty, and English is not their first language, so they would struggle a bit there. But we've also got now a congregation that we can't afford to lose them in that situation.
Mm.
So a perfect scenario to say, here's an option for you. And during this time, you minister to these people and raise up a leader so that you can go in this time, you can improve your language skills. So just a perfect situation for them.
Mm.
The culture of where we're heading to in the Salvation Army, and where we are and where we want to be, is what we've been referring to as a culture of shalom. Dr. Burke wrote an article in the Salvationists some time ago and talked about this culture of shalom. But essentially, it's something where we want the best. We want the best for each other. We expect the best from each other. It's just a culture that just says, we're in this together. Let's make it work. There's enough negativity out there in the world. So inside our world, it's a place of encouragement, of growth, of risk taking, of all the things that would just make such a wonderful culture that we want to experience. So Jennifer, those are the pieces, the pathways to officership. If that's any, was it clear? What
That
do you
was
want to?
really good. That was
Okay.
really good. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your time and support and making time available to speak to our group this afternoon.
Okay, you're welcome. Now, what do I do? No, don't tell me. I know what to do. Thank you. Bless you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, here we are. So that was Colonel Brian. So Colonel Brian is my direct report, my boss, and a good support to me, and thankful for his leadership. I hope that was helpful for you this afternoon, just to hear a little bit about the different pathways to officership. Of course, we want to highlight the training college, residential training, and we believe that that's really important. And, as you heard from Major Andrew this morning, it's just a wonderful place to spend a couple of years in preparation. And so, we really want to highlight that. But in various circumstances, there are other opportunities available. And so we're grateful for Colonel Brian's time this afternoon to share with us. Now, I'm just going to take you through a little bit of the application process. You're seeing all our bloopers and everything this weekend, everything that's happening behind the scenes. We're just, putting it all out there for you, but we're really appreciative that you're hanging in with us and sticking it out with us today. So I just want to take you through a little bit about what the application process looks like in the event that there are those of you here this weekend, and there may be some who at the end of this weekend will say, this is the direction for me, and I want to serve the Lord as an officer in the Salvation Army. We want you to know how to respond and what to do next. And so I'm just going to share a little bit about that this afternoon. Salvation Army officers are men and women who respond to a divine call from God. They have left other pursuits, other occupations. They've consecrated their lives to the service of God and his people, and they've satisfactorily completed a course of training. They have been ordained and commissioned, and unless they're retired, they're engaged in a full-time service within the Salvation Army's ranks in an appointment. Colonel Brian talked a little bit about the requirements. What are some of the basic requirements? What are we looking for? What are those sort of foundational and practical requirements that speak to who a Salvation Army officer is? Well, I'm going to share a little bit about that. First of all, we're looking for spiritual maturity. And Major Andrew really talked in many ways about that this morning in his talk about character. We're looking for people of character. It's expected that a candidate's life will give good evidence of growth, of advancing towards Christian maturity in their lives. And it's revealed, its evidence is lived out in the evidence of the fruit of the Spirit in your life. So that should be evident. Daily Bible reading and prayer should be a priority for all of us, but especially in officers, cadets, and candidates for officership. A candidate's life should display honesty, integrity, trustworthiness, dependability, humility, and patience. There should be a commitment to worshiping together in Salvation Army community at a local core, and with the expectation of service, that you're supporting your officers in ministry there at your local core, and tithing. It should be the desire and practice of a candidate to not only be a disciple, but to be actively engaged in discipling others around you, those you come in contact with, whether it be people at your core or community, those who you are coming alongside of in their Christian walk, in their Christian journey. We would also expect that there would be a sense of vocation, that there's an awareness and response to God's direction and leading in your life. Is there a clear sense that God is leading you in this direction, that He's calling you, that your values are aligned, that your missional values are aligned with the values of the Salvation Army? Officers commit to a lifelong journey that deepens their faith, that develops their character, sharpens our skills and abilities. We're always learning new things, as we're experiencing this weekend, learning new skills and abilities in order to advance the mission. That's really what we're all about. We want to advance the mission of the Army, which is letting people know about Jesus, of a transformational relationship with Jesus, and being a transformational influence in the communities in which we serve. Officers and candidates, cadets, should experience a healthy awareness of self and others. There should be a personal responsibility, ownership of the responsibility of self-care for ourselves and for the people that are in our care. An awareness is obtained by learning about our spiritual gifts, our talents, our skills, and beginning to use them effectively. A candidate should also be aware of areas where he or she needs to grow, and then willing to take an ownership of that, and to ask for help, to ask someone to come alongside and either be a mentor to you, to journey with you, to help you in those areas of growth. Candidates for officership should display a spirit of salvationism, that there is an identification with the Salvation Army's principles and practice, that there's an understanding of the Army's doctrines and distinctives and mission, and that you're engaged in local core ministry. But not only your core, perhaps there are other ministries in your community where you can find involvement, either through your family services or thrift store. Maybe there's a social services unit that could, really benefit from a couple hours a week of volunteers, whatever that looks like in your setting. We want to encourage all candidates to be engaged in mission, advancing the mission of your local core and or other ministry units in your community. And we also would expect that a candidate would display leadership. A candidate should be developing their leadership style by studying the example of Jesus with the practice of servant leadership. Now, of course, we're not anticipating that all these things are going, to be at its highest level, but that there's a willingness to learn, that there's discipleship happening, that you're growing in areas. And of course, the training college can further those areas of growth as you engage in training. We also want to talk about resource management. So we would expect that candidates would display good financial management, and as opportunities arise, to learn about the management of resources that a Salvation Army officer will manage. So we're talking about time, or management of time, people that we work with, our programs and facilitation of our programs. And candidates are expected to present a budget that will support them through your 2 years of training. And we would also want you to attend to your physical, mental, and spiritual health. Those pieces are very, very important. And we want our candidates and officers to be in full-time ministry for the long haul. And so we want to make sure that there's a healthy awareness of your physical health, your mental health, and your spiritual health. And finally, we would expect that there would be an affirmation of your call. And that is lived out through the application process, as various people will speak in to your application, core locals, core officers, others, divisional board, as they have interacted with you and have gotten to know you and have said, yes, I believe and see God's hand upon the individual and affirm their calling for Salvation Army officership. And so the question before us this afternoon is, are you available? Are you people who are available for ministry? Are you ready to serve? Are you people who are appointable? Are you willing to serve the Army wherever God might place you, and to advance the kingdom work wherever the Salvation Army gives you an appointment? And are you accountable? And Major Andrew spoke to us about that this morning, about accountability. Are you a people who are willing to be accountable to God and the Army to give your best for His kingdom? So those are some of the requirements that we would expect and from a candidate's life. Well, what is the process? The process is an application process. It's a discernment process, as I mentioned, where many voices speak into the candidate's case. Individuals who feel called to be an officer will need to allow that calling to be tested by the Salvation Army through the application process, and so that there's affirmation from your local leaders, your core officers, and from the denomination. God calls you, but the denomination commissions and ordains you. And so the more time that you can allow for this process to involve, the better. We want you to allow, a minimum of 3 to 6 months to allow for this process to unfold. So if there are those of you after this weekend who are considering making an application for the 2021 session of cadets, we would encourage you to begin, talking to your core officer and your divisional candidate secretaries soon after this weekend is over. Colonel Brian took us through the several paths of training that can lead to ordination commissioning as a Salvation Army officer, so I won't review that again. But just to say that you can do this as a single person. You don't have to be married. You can do this as a single spouse officer, so married to a non-officer, as long as that individual is a soldier, a Salvation Army soldier in good standing, or as a married couple where both spouses enter training. And we want you to know this is an information gathering process. So just to be clear, that application does not guarantee acceptance, right? That, as I said, there is a discernment process. Now we'll keep moving along here, and want to talk to you about what the application looks like. So there are 3 phases in your boxes that came. I know some of you haven't gotten your boxes yet, but hopefully you would have received a little pamphlet. This pamphlet is also online on our website at sacandidates.ca. So if you didn't get one or you can't track it down, you can go online, sacandidates.ca, and search for this Journey to Officership pamphlet. And it really outlines the 3 phases of the application process. So the first phase, the first step, is to share your interest. Talk to your core officer. That's your first point of contact. And then they'll be in touch with your divisional candidates secretary. You can join the Candidates Fellowship. Now we have something new, a new announcement that we want to make about the Candidates Fellowship, and we're going to share that with you tomorrow. So we have a surprise coming tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. But there is an option to join a divisional network, and which connects you to a territorial network of Salvationists who are exploring God's call on their life. There's also a readiness self-assessment survey on our website. You can go there at sacandidatesagain.ca and take that survey. And it really is just a gauge for your readiness. You'll answer some questions, and you can fill out the survey, and it will help you give you a score, and and then you can use that as a talking point to talk to your divisional candidate secretary, your core officers, and go through your readiness. In the first phase, it's basically information gathering. So there's an application for officership. We want to hear your personal story. So we're going to ask about your experience, your salvation experience, a little bit about your family history, your calling, your experience of holiness, your experience of evangelism and understanding of evangelism, those types of things. We also want to make sure that you're going through the ministry worker screening. And if you are involved in youth work at your Corps, you should have already completed some of these requirements. And so it's just a matter of sending us your certificates through Armitage and your background check and all of those different pieces. So we want to make sure that we're upholding our standards for abuse prevention in the Salvation Army. And then you would submit all that paperwork to your divisional candidate secretary, who will present it to the DC and candidates board, who will then, I'll have a look at it and move on to phase 2. Now, phase 2 is really significant because this is where we get into some of our psychological assessments and also our physical health assessments. We've recently engaged with a new psychologist that we're really excited about. His name is Dr. Cyrus Dirksen. He's located in Winnipeg, and he is a Christian psychologist with pastoral experience. And so he will guide you through psychological assessment. And it takes about 6 weeks to complete that. So you'll receive some tests from his office. They give you about a 2-week window to complete those tests and then send them back, and the tests are scored. And you'll have opportunity to have 2 interviews with Dr. Dirksen. There's one at the beginning before you complete your test, which is kind of like just a get to know you interview. And then there's one at the beginning that really unpacks some of your assessments. And it's a great tool, a great experience where you get to learn more about yourself. You get to learn about some of your growth edges, some of your strengths, and how you can unpack all that for training. And that will just be a really great tool that you will take with you into your training, and the training officers will be able to even further that with you and build some of those pieces into your training. And the physical piece, the medical piece, just some appointments with your doctor. We want to make sure that you're fit for service. And that's the key. We want to make sure that you're healthy, that you're in good health and fit for service, that you can serve God to the best of your ability for kingdom advancement. And that's really what that's about. There's also some reading comprehension tests, and also a great 3-credit course through Booth University College. It's called the Introduction to Officership course. It runs twice a year, once in September and then again in January. So again, if you haven't completed that course and you're interested in making application for the 2021 session, we need you to get enrolled in that course for the January session. And Major Kathy Harris leads us through that course. She's a retired officer and really enjoys the interaction with the candidates as she facilitates the course. And you really get to learn about the priesthood of all believers, some Salvation Army doctrine sprinkled in there, some Salvation Army history. And there's also some real practical pieces to that course where you'll be asked to visit a center. You'll be asked to visit a Corps Council meeting if you don't already serve on a Corps Council. Some different pieces like that, and share your experiences with the rest of your class. And I think that's been a highlight for a lot of our students. So that is also there as well. Also, you'll be required to submit a budget, and we just really want to make sure that financially you're able to support yourself through those 2 years of training, which is really important. And then the final piece, after all that's completed, is a divisional interview. And really, it's an opportunity for your divisional candidates board to get to know you a little better, to hear your heart, to hear the story of your journey and your desire to be a Salvation Army officer. And it's really a great opportunity for them to connect with you and to get to know you a little better. After all that's complete, it's my privilege and honor to represent you and your application at the Territorial Candidates Board, where Colonel Brian is, our territorial leaders, Commissioners Tidd, Colonels Hill, and other members of our cabinet, even Corps officer from the field, Captain Barb Stanley. Many of us, we will gather, and it's really, really a privilege for us as we review your case, as we share your story, and as we get to know you a little better. So that's a little bit about the journey to officership. I just want to say, friends, and Terrence would try to share the scripture reference with you earlier today. I really hope you're going to be able to tune in at Vespers tonight to hear this word. But the harvest is great, right? Jesus said the fields are white unto harvest. Someone said, the need is the call. And we know the need is great. As we look around our world today, we can see that the need is great. But the exciting thing is that more and more people are responding. Major Andrew, we're going to bring Major Andrew back in right now from the backstage. But he shared a statistic with me the other day that there are currently 54 cadets and officers in training. And I think that's more than we've had in a long time, isn't it, Andrew? So people are responding.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jennifer, Candidates Council last week, we accepted the auxiliary lieutenants. So that number is no longer 54, it's 56 individuals in this territory. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Praise the Lord.
Yeah. And we also accepted our first 2 reflectors of holiness. I'm not going to name who they are, but to say that they're on the call. And if they want to identify themselves, they can do that. But I don't want to share their news without them having informed their family and friends. But we're really, really excited about that. Major Andrew, do you have anything to add? Any comments that you would like to make? Anything to clarify or anything I've missed?
No, other than to say, perhaps if you hadn't joined my principal's lecture, Major Darlene and I, in advance of that, through Jennifer's interview, identified the fact that we responded to a call as lay people and were full-time, short-term, non-officer service personnel, which in this territory we are now calling auxiliary lieutenants. We served a 3-year term. Outside of Canada, there's lots of opportunity in this country as well, but that ability to serve in that capacity really solidified our calling and was significant for us, and it logically led us to the College for Officer Training. So I just point that out from my own lived experience.
Yeah, and Commissioner Tidd, I'm sure you're going to hear this from him tonight, but he always talks about recruiting people for appointments that we haven't even dreamed of yet. And so just some real visionary leadership from Commissioner Tidd as we're asking God about the future of the Salvation Army. What's next for us? Where are the places that we need to be? Who are the people with the skills and capacity to be able to, go into those places where we're not yet? And I believe that there may be people on this call today. I can think of several people in my mind right now who I think would benefit from some of those appointments that we've not yet dreamed of and go into those places where we're not yet. So it's great. I wonder from our group, are there any questions or comments before we wrap up this session and take a break and prepare for our breakout sessions? You can submit those. Again, we'll try to cover some new some of those questions if you have them in our panel tonight, but just as we wrap up, I see lots of congratulations to Jeff and Mia. So that's exciting. Jeff and Mia, we're so proud of you, so pleased for you. You're going to be a reflector of holiness. I just love that sessional name. This is the first of General Petal's selection of sessional names, reflector of holiness. So it's great. All right. Well, Andrew, thanks for joining in again this afternoon. I don't see any further questions coming at the moment, but we may have some tonight for the panel. So thank you, everyone. And the breakout sessions are going to be in sessions. You go to the sessions tab and click on the breakout session, and that starts in 20 minutes. So we'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.